takes.
If they don't make it to the finals, then this might be one of the biggest L's in NBA history.
Hot topics.
All right, well, I want to give you an apology. Tyrese Halliburton may have proved me wrong.
The best analysis.
But Jokic, he might be the best player in the league this season. He really might be the MVP.
This is the Full Court Report.
Alrighty, we're back. This is episode number 8. A little different. No Toby today.
Yeah, no Toby, and I'm feeling very under the weather, folks.
Yeah.
So,
It's your flu game.
yeah, but we got a nice episode in store. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I know. We have quite a bit of news to get into. So, yeah, I mean, we take a week off and then we get all this stuff coming in. So we got a lot to talk about. But I figure we start here. I feel like let's just jump right into it, I guess. The Embiid extension with Philadelphia. Joel Embiid, he has signed a contract extension that will keep him in Philadelphia through the 2028-2029 NBA season. It's a 3-year, $129.9 million contract. Yeah, man. The MVP, the former MVP, is going to be most likely. I mean, I don't know. Anything is possible, but from what it looks like, it seems like he's going to be there forever and keep his whole career there in Philly. So, good for him, good for the organization. But I guess first, like, what are your kind of overall thoughts on the extension and Embiid in general?
Very well deserved. Obviously, he's been an MVP, been, much as I hate to admit it, he's been a top 5 player in the league for, the last 4 to 5 years or so. And a lot of people are saying that he's like the modern day Hakeem. He's a very skilled big man, plays both ends, got a lot of size to him. So it's a very well-deserved extension. Kind of sucks because now I got to deal with him in the same conference until that's over with. But very well deserved. Good for you, Joel.
Yeah,
Keep doing your thing.
definitely agree. I mean, again, obviously won the MVP 2 seasons ago, but one of the best players in the whole league. I think just unquestionably. I mean, last year he dealt with some injuries. He only played 39 games this past season, but he did play all 6 playoff games for the Sixers against the Knicks in the first round. He was still fantastic. He averaged 33 points, about 11 rebounds, about 6 assists, a block and a half. So, like, again, typical Embiid. Even though he missed most of the season, he still came back and made an impact in the postseason. But I guess, so now they got their team. They got Embiid. They got Tyrese Maxey. They got Paul George, this big 3. They obviously added a couple of other kind of rotational players. But what do you think of the prospects of this team winning a championship? Do you think they can get it done with this current roster or this current big 3?
I've been seeing a little too much hype for these Philadelphia 76ers, and I can understand where it's coming from, but I don't understand because this is the stars, Embiid and Paul George, are very injury prone. I was looking up their basketball references. Embiid has never played over 70 games. He's never even hit the 70 game mark. The most he's played in a season was 68 games. So, he's only missing 14 games in the 68 games that he played that year. I think that was 22, 23, or maybe it was 21, 22 that he put up those 68 games, but never hit 70. And other than last season, where Paul George played 74 games for the Clippers, he hasn't played over 60 games since 2018, 2019. So it all hinges on availability. The best ability is availability. If these clowns keep getting hurt, then they're not going to get it done. They need Joel Embiid to win anything. As good as their roster is now, because I was looking at their whole team, they have a very solid bench unit. They rival the Knicks bench unit, I would say. Like they could make they could make a starting lineup out of their bench players. So, you know, they're pretty solid team, but I think if playoff time comes around and either Embiid or Paul George are out, I think they're getting tossed to the side against whoever they're playing in that round.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good that they, have each other now. Like you said, they got to stay healthy. That's always the biggest thing with a team with Embiid or, like you mentioned, Paul George. And I feel like, I don't know. I think just maybe having lesser of a burden on Embiid, like you have Paul George now to kind of have those games where you don't really need Embiid to drop like 40 points and 20 rebounds to just, get a regular season win in the middle of January or something,
Yeah.
like he can kind of save himself a little bit. And then obviously Tyrese Maxey, I feel like they really got to lean on him during the regular season the most. Obviously he was great in the playoffs in their series against the Knicks, but obviously last year he was the most improved player, so he's on the come up. And again, I feel like being a younger guy, maybe he's the guy that kind of balls out the most during the regular season, helps the Sixers kind of get a good enough seed in the playoffs, and then come playoff time, that's when they really lock in with Embiid and Paul George. But I don't know. I really like their roster this year. They brought back Oubre, who I thought was really good for them last year. And then they brought in Caleb Martin from Miami, who's been really good for the Heat the past couple of seasons. They still have Kyle Lowry. They brought in Reggie Jackson from the Nuggets. They brought in Eric Gordon. They drafted Jarrett McCain from Duke. He's kind of a popular figure, like on TikTok, I guess, but he's actually a solid player. Drummond, kind of backing up Embiid at center, and then they have Yabu Sele from the French national team, the guy who dunked on LeBron.
Oh, what up, guy?
So I know, like, I honestly I feel like they have really good like guard depth, but I feel like they could maybe use like, we'll see. We'll see how Drummond plays. We'll see how if Yabu Sele can like be an NBA rotational guy, or if it was just kind of like a one-off Olympic thing. But I don't know, man. They have the pieces to be very competitive this year. Obviously, the East is really competitive with Boston, with New York. Orlando's going to be really good. Indiana, Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So anything is possible, but I don't know, man. I think the Sixers, like you said, just got to stay healthy, and I think if they can do that, they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you made a good point with Tyrese Maxey being one of the younger guys. Didn't even think about that. Like if they can get a lot out of him, I don't want to say like Paul George and Embiid can coast through the regular season, but like Embiid doesn't need to be dropping 40 and 15 every night for them to succeed now, because they got Paul George, they got him, all those bench guys that you said, like they've had their moments as starters throughout their career. They know what they're doing. They're more than capable of, filling in whatever role they need to fill in. So I didn't even think about that, but Embiid and Paul George, who knows? They might not have to be playing even 35 minutes a game. They could maybe push them back and just be like, "Hey, man, if we're in this for a championship, you shouldn't really mind, not taking a back seat, but just kind of, letting the other guys do their thing."
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we're beyond the point of Embiid's career, at least, where he feels like the need to like go for MVPs, or I don't know. Like sometimes I felt like the past like couple of years with him battling against like Jokic in the MVP discussion or whoever else, it kind of, not to say it like got the best of him, but I felt like that was just such a big narrative, and it was kind of taking away from like the Sixers trying to be successful. But I don't know. I think this year it's obviously a little different, but yeah, again, I would just say the biggest thing with this team I think is just size. Like again, I think they have really good like guard depth, but you know, you if like we'll see how reliable Drummond is, but if you don't have Drummond out there, like you don't really have a big man like on this roster that's gonna be able to match up with some of the other big men in the Eastern Conference. And there's a lot of like bigger teams in the Eastern Conference, like your Knicks or the Celtics. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting season. Um, any other thoughts on this Embiid extension, or the Sixers in general for the upcoming year?
I mean, they made a couple moves, they added a couple guys, but like they were no match for the Knicks last season in the playoffs, and we added a couple guys. So I mean, might be more of the same for Philly come postseason time. But they got a good team. I think they're better than last year for sure. But I think a lot of the other good teams in the East are also better from last year, aside from maybe the Celtics, who I don't think made a single move.
Yeah, but they're just like built to
Yeah.
win. But yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting. Um, yeah, I guess I could ask this real quick before we move on, but it's kind of related to the Sixers, and I don't really know what people classify a big three anymore, but like I'm trying to think of teams in recent memory. I mean, I like you can kind of pick out like the top three players on a team and say, okay, that's their big three. But like for this team, I think you have Embiid, you have
Hmm.
Paul George, you have Tyrese Maxey. They were all all stars. Obviously, Embiid being one of the best players in the league. This feels more like a traditional like big three, if that makes sense. But do you think it still makes sense to have big threes in like this NBA, or would you rather have more of like a balanced overall roster? I guess not to say that the Sixers don't have that, but you know,
I feel like I'm gonna contradict myself a little bit here when I go into an explanation, but I've said in the past, I don't know if it was on the show or if it was just, us hanging out, but I've said before, I think dynamic duos are better for a team than a big three is because when you have a defined third option, like, when another bad example, contradicting myself, when the Warriors had Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and Clay, Clay is their third guy. Like he's the third guy. I guess with the last year's team, Chris Middleton was the third guy for the Bucks.
hmm
I feel like a lot of the time when you go big, like the Suns with the Suns, except they don't have a big three really. It's just they kind of spent all their money on Kevin Durant. Oh no, they have Bradley Beal. I forgot about Bradley Beal. The
yeah,
Suns, like they're too top heavy. I feel like a lot of teams that have big threes are way too top heavy. It takes away opportunities from the role players, if you even have role players, because with the Suns, they spent all that money on those three guys. The rest of the roster is garbage. I would say more times than not, that's what happens is you get these three all-star level players, the rest of your team kind of stinks. And then you're taking away from, the rookies, the young guys, or, somebody like Eric Gordon on the Sixers. Like that guy's just there, catch and shoot, get some buckets, and be a vet. He might not get as many touches as he's expecting on the Sixers with these other guys. Same with Kelly Oubre. Like they're gonna need Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin. They're gonna need these guys to be in a rhythm come playoff time if they want to succeed. Because three guys can only do so much. Like, you
yeah,
know what I mean? But the Sixers have the depth. They have the role players. They have the names that people have heard of. And they have it for everything. They have their scoring with Oubre, they have the playmaking with Lowry and Reggie Jackson, and they have the rebounding with Drummond. So if uh Nick Nurse do a solid job in making sure that everybody does what they're supposed to do, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And again, this is like not the best example. I mean, yes, they have three very talented players in Embiid, Paul George, and Maxey, but just the way they built their roster, it's just really well built. You know, like you said, Oubre and Martin. They just got like a really solid rotation of players who, like you said, also fit like their roles, like what they're probably going to be asked to do. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting, and yeah, man. Again, the Sixers team, they're going to be fun. I hope they stay healthy. Like I don't know. It's just never fun watching a guy like Embiid or Paul George, like one of the top players in the league, just miss a bunch of games during the regular season, kind of get out of rhythm, and then just there's a big question mark on what's going to happen in the playoffs because of it. So I just hope that we get to see it kind of played out entirely, and whatever happens, happens. So, but yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. Shout out Embiid again, getting his paycheck, and again, we wish you luck this year. But moving on to our next topic, I just wanted to touch on a few like injuries that we've seen already, right? So like teams are coming back from or for media day, and they're going to be doing training camp soon. The preseason, I'm pretty sure, starts next week. So like a lot of these teams are going to be gearing up for their season. But we already got a couple of guys who are expected to miss the early portion of the season. So in Boston, Kristaps Porzingis, he's dealing with a foot injury, and they're saying he's most likely going to be out until December. In New York, Mitchell Robinson, he's going to be out also till about the December with an ankle injury. And then two other players I mentioned, Gigi Jackson in Memphis dealing with a foot injury, and Devin Carter, who's a rookie in Sacramento. He was a lottery pick. He's also going to miss the early part of the season with a shoulder injury. Um, so again, we haven't even played any games yet this year, and guys are already expected to miss a couple of months. But for the Celtics and the Knicks in particular, what do you make of that? Not having Kristaps in Boston and then not having Mitchell Robinson in New York, because I feel like that's kind of the biggest things there.
Well, before I get into that, I've also heard that Julius Randle might be out for the first couple weeks because he's still rehabbing his shoulder. Um, I've heard that, Thanksgiving-ish, like a month or so into the season that he should be back, which with him, Kristaps and Mitch, I think the Knicks and the Celtics are both good enough to succeed without them. It might be a little, it might be tough, coaching wise to figure out how to play small ball because I feel like other than the Warriors back in the day, not back in the day, like 5 or 6 years ago, they got it to work. But we haven't really seen a lot of other teams be successful with it. Like the Rockets were kind of successful with it for a bit there, but
Mm-hmm.
it kind of just doesn't work. You need the rebounding to succeed in the NBA. So, as long as they can stay in play in contention until December or whenever, they should be fine. But I don't really have a lot to say about Chris Kristaps just because who cares about the Celtics? I don't. But I do not think that when Mitchell Robinson comes back in December, I still don't think he's going to be 100% healthy. The guy's never healthy. Is as much as I hate when Spencer trash talks him, that guy is made of glass. That guy is never healthy. So if I was Thibodeau, if I was, the medical staff on the Knicks, I would even keep him out until the All-Star break. I would just say, bro, rehab, get that ankle right. Even if you're 80 to 90%, even if you're at 80% ready to go by the time the playoffs come around, it's better than slapping them in December and having them, it's weak throughout the rest of the season. Playoffs come around. It's not, it's even worse than probably what it was when he came back because it's not going to get better if he keeps playing on it. So I don't know. I think the Knicks will be fine. We really need him come playoff time, especially if we don't make a move for Nick Richards or uh guy from the Jazz, Walker Kessler. If we don't make a move for those guys, like I've been seeing all over social media, we're definitely going to need Mitch for the playoffs. So I would even keep him out until the All-Star break. Like we're going to be a good enough team to be in the playoffs at that point in the season anyway. So that's really all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, on the Celtics, last year Kristaps dealt with some injuries, and they were 21-4 in the regular season without Kristaps. So, like, not to say that he's just they don't even need him at all because they have such a good team, but I like you said, I feel like they're gonna be fine. But yeah, for the Knicks, I don't know. This is just so interesting to me because I've been saying like Randall should be the starting center, but now there's a chance he might also miss some time. But I feel like I probably imagine he'll be back before Mitch, so I think at some point he's going to be playing some center. I looked it up from last season, you know, and I forget when they like brought in OG and they traded like quickly and RJ and all of them, but Randall only played center 7% of the time last year. So a pretty small like percentage of like his minutes was him like listed as their center. But I would imagine they kind of see a little bit more of that now with no Mitch Robb. Probably a lot of Precious Achua. But I don't know, man. It's gonna be fun. Like this, I feel like they can kind of get away with it. And who knows? Maybe they find a lot of success with this lineup, with Brunson, with McHale, with like Josh Hart and OG, and then Randall. Like that would kind of be a small ball lineup in just in terms of just height wise. I don't think Randall's probably like 6'8", 6'9", maybe. So, and obviously a lot quicker and faster than a lot of centers. So I think it could work. But it's we'll see what Tibbs does. It's up to him. Obviously, I think Tibbs is a little bit more of like a traditional coach, but you never know. You never know.
The only thing I know, if you've seen enough Knicks basketball, you've seen Julius Randle, in his mood where he's got terrible body language and he's like, not no, he kind of is complaining. Like he's just kind of out there complaining. Like somebody throws a bad pass to him and he's walking down the court like, like just all pissy and pissed off. He's gonna have to kind of deal with getting muscle. If he's going to play center, he's strong. Like he's a stronger, like 6'8" guy. Like, I don't want to say he's LeBron, but he's built. He's got a solid build. So he'll be able to manage himself, but he might get muscled, and he's got to be okay with that. Like he can't be walking down the court after somebody gets an offensive putback and be like, where's my help? Blah blah blah, moaning like a softie. But I do think the Knicks, with Josh Hart, how insane he was during the playoffs. OG's not small. I feel like we have a good amount of wing players that can also get rebounds. So it'll be a team effort. That's what this whole Knicks squad is kind of representing. Is we're a team. The Nova Knicks, like it's a brotherhood. So they got to really work together. I think that's the only way that they'll survive without a big man. Basically, we do have Jericho Sims, and I'm kind of hoping he gets some minutes because even though he put up that terrible dunk contest, he's insanely athletic. So I think that will help him out, when it comes to playing defense and just, being a lob threat. But he's still young. And I think the reason why he doesn't get as many minutes as he does is because I don't think he's got the basketball IQ yet. Like he just he doesn't really know what he's supposed to be doing, I guess. Like I'm trying to find the right words for it, but like he's just kind of he's been bottom of the bench. He's very rarely plays, but he's gonna have to step it up.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I think I don't even know if I'm really too concerned about the rebounding per se. Like you said, like Josh Hart is a fantastic rebounder for his position, and then OG, like you said, another like bigger guy can get rebounds over bigger players, but the rim protection I think is probably going to be the biggest thing because like yes, Randall's tall, but like he's not really known for
Yeah,
that, and it's not like OG is a great defender, but wouldn't say like defending the rim is particularly his
yeah.
greatest asset. So like I think you'll have still have a solid defensive team, but there could be a lot of games where you're just giving up points in the paint because you just simply don't have the size to match some of the bigger players.
That's where Jericho Sims needs to come in. Like if it's ever in a game where we're just getting demolished in the paint, like you can't get any rebounds, they're just going in, walking into the paint. I think that might be, the scenario where Tibbs is like, all right, Jericho, get in there, just be a big body, like just be down there, take up space. Don't let people jump over you, which they won't. Like that guy's got a standing vert, he can get his head to the rim. So
Yeah.
I think if him and Precious Achua, because Precious Achua is also kind of on the smaller side for a big man. I think he's like 6'9", 6'10", something like that. So
Yeah.
it's just going to be a lot of, the next guy stepping up, next guy up. You know how it goes.
Yeah, I know it's gonna be interesting. The Knicks, man, like they're kind of similar to the Sixers in that they have a lot of really good like guard depth. Like Brunson and McHale, obviously. But you also have DiVincenzo. You also have McBride, Deuce McBride, like who can
We
kind of
got
play the one and the two.
we got Landry Shamet now, which I don't like him, but I know his value as a player, so I'll give him his respect.
Yeah, campaign as well.
Now
Um,
that guy, he's got to earn my respect. That guy campaign because I've always thought he was a clown his whole career.
yeah. So again, I don't think that's going to be a problem either. I think you'll have plenty of depth. It's just trying to find that rotation at center and just kind of making up this part of the season without Mitch. But yeah, I don't know. How do you think? I guess early season injuries can like impact the team. I know we kind of just talked about like how it'll impact like the Knicks in particular, but just in general, like, do you think there's any positives that can come from an injury like this, or is it all negative? I guess.
Um, no, there's definitely positives. Like I just said, it's all about that next man up mentality. If you're Precious Chua or if you're Jericho Sims, you got to be ready. You just got to be ready because they'll get minutes whether they want them or not. So, it's all about getting that next guy up. And who knows, maybe Jericho Sims gets into December and, you know, he's looking pretty solid and maybe, he's a trade target for other teams. Maybe other teams are like, hey, we're even worse at center depth than the Knicks are right now. Let's scoop him up because they're about to get Mitchell Robinson back. And who knows, maybe we get a couple, get a second rounder for him, some other guy that we can use. And I totally forgot we signed Markeith Morris. So he's not a big man really per se. He's kind of the same size as Julius Randle, but he's got a toughness and a grit to him to, get down and dirty, get some boards, play some defense. So I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, another guy for the culture. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's just it kind of opens up the like what a coach can do, like he's got to kind of work around finding new lineups and like new play calls for, the personnel that he's going to have on the floor. So you never know what you're going to find. And again, it might be better than what you expected. So I think the Knicks will be fine. I think the Celtics of course will be fine. Um, but yeah, man, it's again these early season injuries they always suck. Getting those like news, they're like, oh yeah, he's gonna miss like 2 or 3 months, but they'll be back before we know
Yeah,
it.
as long as, if this goes for any player, any team, as long as the early season injury isn't lingering into the postseason, like if it's just you get your surgery or whatever, and then you're back to it. Early season injuries aren't, it's not that big of a deal. There's 82 games, a lot of games. So
Yeah, exactly. So again, should be should be fun when we get to this season here. But yeah, man. So now I guess we transition to the last part. What we wanted to talk about, this big news kind of broke today. As you can see, Justin kind of teasing it the whole show. Derrick Rose, man, he has officially retired after 16 NBA seasons. Um, I don't know, man. It's just there's just so much to
heartbreaking.
say. Yeah, it
Heartbreaking.
really is. It's crazy. Like, I, I mean, I don't know. I'll let you go. Just I guess overall thoughts on DRose, his career, and then we'll get to an interesting question. I think a lot of people have been pondering.
Um, well, first things first, me being a little 10, 11-year old, however old I was, first, getting into basketball, Carmelo Anthony and Derrick Rose were the two guys who I was watching on TV, and I was like, bro, I love this sport. This sport is sick. Derrick Rose, not a small guy, but you know, NBA size, he's a smaller guy, just throwing down crazy athleticism. You know, almost every kid was watching Derrick Rose and was like, I want to be like Derrick Rose, like hometown kid drafted into the Chicago Bulls, just like a fairy tale story, like just crazy. Youngest MVP, just it couldn't have been going better, and then it all came crashing down. So, I feel like he had no haters. He had no haters. Everybody was a Derrick Rose fan. Everybody wanted to see him succeed. And you know, now that he's retired, I don't think we'll ever see or hear from that guy again. I think he's gonna go enjoy his money with his family. He's gonna go do his thing, and he might just kind of fall off the face of the earth.
Honestly, as he should, man. I feel like that's what these guys deserve. They be in like the spotlight their whole life, and then finally can just kind of be human again, I guess. But yeah, it is. It's definitely sad. Yeah, it's just crazy that he's 35 years old, right? Like he did suffer those injuries, obviously earlier in his career, but it's crazy that he still played till he was 35 and to the year 2024. I feel like that's pretty impressive. Just kind of given where he was at when he was a lot younger. But yeah, it's just funny like how many people say like Derrick Rose is one of the guys that like got me into basketball. Like my younger brother was like a huge Derrick Rose fan, right? Like I know a Bulls fan from school, and he was like, "Yeah, Derrick Rose was like the guy." Like me getting into basketball, it was because of him, and so it's cool that he left that impact on so many people. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the big question now is he a Hall of Famer? And I feel like it's such an interesting case because um it's not just the like pro basketball Hall of Fame. Like you can have to factor in like what he did before the NBA and with Team USA as well. And if but I don't know. I guess that is the question. Like, do you think Derrick Rose is the Hall of Famer? Yeah, I'll let you do your thing because I got a lot to say about this. I think.
I think he will be. I think he could probably make it just based off of his career before his ACL injury. And, he wasn't a bum by any means after the injury. Like, I have it written down. He was played for the Bulls up until his injury. And then I think he had another like 2 years, I think, on the Bulls, maybe 2 or 3 years on the Bulls before he got traded to the Knicks the first time. Went to the Cavs, was hunting for a championship with LeBron, back when he got all the old heads on that Cavs team for that year. He signed. They got Dwayne Wade. They got Darren Williams. They got all the old heads. He went to the T-Wolves and put up 50. And then I don't even remember this happening, but apparently he got traded to the Pistons and then got traded to the Knicks again, which I liked that stint on the Knicks better than the first one for some reason. I don't know. It felt more like him being a Knick for some reason. And then he just ended his career in Memphis where he went to college. So I
Yeah.
think I think he had a very solid career after, MVP, all NBA, all that stuff. I think he could make the Hall of Fame based off his career just from when he was on the Bulls. And if he didn't make it, he'd be the first MVP to not make it to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, dude. It's just so crazy. Um, I wanna before we talk about the NBA. This is why I felt like I had a lot to say because I want to like factor in his high school and college career because I feel like that's important to his case, especially. But in high school, he went to Simeon High School. This is for like those who don't know. It's a pretty like prominent high school in Chicago. There's like a lot of basketball players that come from that school. Like in the I guess 80s, Nick Anderson, who was a player on the Magic with like Shaq and like Penny Hardaway, like that team. He came from that school. Jabari Parker, more recently Kendrick Nunn, Taylor Horton Tucker, and then so yeah, so again, he's coming from this school, like you said, he's like a hometown kid. It's cool that he got drafted to Chicago, but he was like fantastic at this school, like a standout freshman. Um, his senior year, he actually played against Kemba Walker and Brandon Jennings in like two separate games. When they were kind of like also on the come up, so that was pretty cool. But so again, fantastic high school career. Not to say that like a lot of NBA guys, a lot of them have like really great high school careers. That's why they get recruited and go to the league. But Derrick Rose, I guess worth noting that he was very good in high school, and then his freshman and only year at Memphis, he was recruited by John Calipari while he was the coach there. Obviously, the longtime coach at Kentucky. He got the Derrick Rose led them to 38 wins that season, which was, I think, at the time the most like ever, like in college basketball. And he got them to the national championship game against Kansas. And he played like Mario Chalmers was on that Kansas team.
Mm.
If you guys remember the name Brandon Rush, he was also on that team. I think he played on like the Warriors for like Darrell Arthur was on that team as well. I think he played like on the Nuggets at one point. So they had like a really solid team at Kansas. And again, Derrick Rose, a freshman, getting all the way to the championship game. Very impressive. But there's like a whole controversy about his college careers because they think he might have cheated on his SAT or like had someone else take the SAT for him. But there's not like a ton of evidence. I think that's just like one thing, like somebody, like some investigation was trying to prove. But there was also the controversy of his, I think it's his older brother, maybe, or one of his brothers, whoever it was like traveling with the team during that season, which is against like NCAA rules, I guess. Like, and so they ended up like vacating this season, like from the record books, essentially. Like, it's weird. I guess I don't know. I guess it's weird. Like, sure, it's I guess technically not a part of history, but like we all saw it happen. Like Derrick Rose played all of these games, and they're just like, I think you got to give these wins back, and it's I guess really more so for like a coach. Like a coach, I think John Calipari doesn't have those 38 wins from that season, and so does the University of Memphis. But
I didn't even hear about this. I had no idea any of this happened.
yeah, it was. I don't know. It's it's not like the craziest thing in the world, like that, especially like before NIL and everything. Like a lot of like these violations would happen, and, like in terms of like trying to vacate wins and stuff. But So unfortunately he had to deal with that like coming out of college, but again, so that's kind of the biggest thing with me is like, are they going to even factor that in, or are they going to like
Mm,
go by the book and be like, well, these games never happened, even though we have like highlights from these games and it's just fun. Like, so I don't know. So that's kind of like a big point I think there with his college career, but the NBA career. I mean, his first 4 years, like it's crazy. He was really on pace to be like one of the best players of all time. His first playoff game, he was a rookie. He scored a league record at the time, or tied a league record. I think he had 36 points in his playoff debut as a rookie, which tied Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record. So, like, first playoff game with the Bulls as a rookie again, like making this crazy impact immediately, which is obviously always a good sign. And that series, that first round series against Boston. So this was the reigning champion Boston Celtics at the time in 2009. This was like a lot of people consider this like the best first round like playoff series like ever
mm,
because of how entertaining it was. Like I mentioned in game one, Derrick Rose had a franchise or a league record for a rookie. Game two, Ben Gordon, if you guys know the name Ben Gordon, he scored 42 points in game two in Boston, and the Bulls lost by 3. Game three was like a blowout win by the Celtics. Game four was a double overtime win by the Bulls. Game five was a 2-point win by Boston in overtime. Game six was a triple overtime game with Ray Allen scoring 51 points, and the Bulls won the game. And then game seven was just a 10-point win by the Celtics. But like again, one of the best, like a lot of people think it's like the best and most entertaining like first round series like ever. Definitely if you have time, go watch highlights from some of those games. It's pretty interesting. But like you said, you know, the next year, year two, he was the first Bulls All-Star since Michael Jordan. So like,
mm.
we're talking about like this homecoming, with Derrick Rose being in Chicago. Like, it's not just that he was so good. I felt like he really meant a lot to the franchise because they're like, finally, this guy's here to like bring us back to our former glory when we were winning, 6 championships with Michael Jordan. Derrick Rose like looks amazing. And then the next year, year three, he wins MVP, like you said, the youngest ever. They won 60 games that year. I think it was 60 games exactly, which was the first time they had done that since the 1998 team with Jordan again. So again, like, wow, we're like seeing them. Not only is he a great player, but they're actually winning again. So it's like, wow, everything is on the up and up. Year four, he signs a contract extension with the Bulls, and that's the season or the playoffs where he tears his ACL and like everything just. So it's just couldn't have come at like a worse time, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's really crazy, and yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, I'm with you. I think I would say yes. I would say yes that he's a Hall of Famer, but it's crazy. So I don't know.
Do you think with the, medicine and technology and like rehabbing stuff that we have now, because like, you hear somebody tear their ACL, you're like, oh, they're going to be out, 6 to 8 months, and then they're just going to be back to what they were doing. Like now, like back then you heard an ACL tear, you were like, damn, bro, that's career ending. Like, this, he'll never be the same. But I don't want to say a lot of people tear their ACL, but you hear it now, NFL, NBA, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, he's out 6 to 8 months. See you next season. You'll be back to what you were doing before. Do you think if he had all the things that players have now, that he could have came back and maybe not MVP level, but you think he could have came back and still been, all NBA, all-star level player?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think
It's a good what if.
yeah, because like the first player that comes to mind in my head is like Jamal Murray, right? Like he just tore his ACL. The Nuggets were like gearing up for this great couple of years of playoff success, and then he tears his ACL. But obviously he took a year off, came back, and now they're a championship team. Like, I think what's the worst thing with Derrick Rose is like, yeah, he tore his ACL his fourth year, or yeah, it was his fourth year against the Sixers. He takes the year off and then comes back and then tore his meniscus in his other knee.
Ooh, I didn't even know
Right.
that.
So like, it wasn't. Everyone remembers the ACL. I think that's just like, I don't know. I mean, it was a playoff series, so that's kind of makes it, I guess a bigger scale. But like the thing with Rose is it's just like it was like one thing after another, and like, yeah, I think if he had just suffered the first ACL injury and just didn't have a lot of lingering injuries after that, obviously the meniscus injury was kind of what really derailed him. But it's just, yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, like you said, medicine has like advanced a little bit more. Like Kevin Durant tore his Achilles, and a lot of people didn't think he was going to be able to come back. And I mean, he's still one of the best players in the league and has been since that time, which was what, 2019?
I mean, he came back and played on the Nets and arguably had the best season of his career.
Right. So it's just like there's so many injuries nowadays where um it's like it's not that it doesn't affect the player, but they can still be like as kind of productive as they were almost pre-injury. But yeah, it's just such a tragic thing, man. I mean, I don't know. Um, but to me, I think he's a Hall of Famer, and I think it's just like will the class that he goes in with, because I was looking it up earlier. I think you have to be retired for 4 years or from like basketball for like four whole seasons essentially to like then be eligible for the Hall of Fame. And I was kind of trying to think of like players who had recently retired that like might be kind of, I guess, in contention with Derrick Rose. And so Blake Griffin was a guy who's like, I guess, recently retired. I'm pretty sure he's fully done, like not coming back
Yeah.
to the NBA. Gordon Hayward recently pretty retired. Andre Iguodala, who's like, when you compare those two, it's interesting because like, the one guy for like a short period of time, Derrick Rose, had like wildly success, MVP, one of the best point guards in the league. Iguodala was kind of like had a really long career, won a bunch of championships, has the finals MVP. So like I can see that going either way, to be honest. Like if it comes down to it. I don't know. I'm not saying it will, but who knows? And then guys who have just like been out of the league but haven't really played, I guess, professionally. Not to I guess Kemba Walker's playing somewhere right now, maybe. So that
Yeah,
might be off the list.
I think he's somewhere in Asia, but I'm not sure. There's a couple
Well,
guys. There's a couple guys who are around that like 33 to 36-year age range that are like putting in work overseas, like not even just kind of there. Like some of these guys are
yeah.
going ham overseas.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see if like any other players, and then obviously you can always just like go back in time, like a guy that wasn't like a first ballot Hall of Famer, like when he was first eligible, and the Hall of Fame wants to bring in an older player who might have had more success. So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. Again, I think it really is going to come down to the college aspect, because if you factor in his college season, I feel like that's going to really help him. He also has 2 gold medals with the Team USA for the FIBA. So that's also given him some case there.
I don't think as a matter of fact, I know he won't be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he'll be a Hall of Famer. Like, I think he had a better career than Blake Griffin. Like Blake Griffin was,
Interesting.
pretty solid for a long time, but
Yeah.
I still think Derrick Rose is a better player and had a better career than Blake Griffin.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. It's
That was just
no,
an
I'm not the
example. Just
voter.
one of
Yeah,
those
yeah,
guys, one of those guys that you said, an
yeah.
example.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. Um, like you said, because you mentioned like kind of like where he was going throughout his career. He was with the Timberwolves, Pistons, and Knicks, like that portion of his career. He was also like you said, like pretty productive as a player and was getting a lot of six man of the year votes those seasons. So I don't know. Not saying like that really is gonna help him a ton, but I think it's important to just note also like that he was even when he was a lot older, like in his like early 30s, right? Like after all these injuries, he was still like contributing to teams and like making an impact off the bench and stuff like that. Not on any like great teams that were like winning championships, but just, in general. So I don't know, man. Shout out Derrick Rose. That's really
Yeah.
all it is, man. Shout out Derrick Rose.
You know, even
Yeah.
though I said earlier that the second time on the Knicks, he felt more of a Knick than he did the first time, but that first team, I can't really remember, a lot of the bench players, but that was when we had Phil Jackson. We had just drafted Kristaps like a year or two before that. We had DRose, who at that point in his career was still putting up, like 17, 18 points a game. And even though he was on the decline, we still had Melo, like all-star level Melo. I really thought that was going to be a team. Like I really thought that was going to be a 50-win team. And then it just I don't know. I blame it on that guy Jeff Hornacek. That guy had no idea what he was doing as a coach. He had no clue what he was doing.
Damn, dude. Yeah, that is that was a great little team. Melo, KP, and Derrick Rose. Who?
Like that's a nice big three.
Yeah, right. We were just talking about big threes.
Yeah.
That's not too shabby. Yeah, it's just really never materialized with Rose, unfortunately, after all the injuries. But I don't know, man. Still a fantastic player and still like one of the most fun players to watch. Yeah, man. Shout out Derrick Rose. Hope you enjoy retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know if you got anything else. I feel like we
Um,
covered all our bases here.
yeah, no. I do have my little game, but we'll wait till Toby's back for that one.
Yeah, I think it'd be better if all of us are here. We can make a little
Yeah.
competition out of it.
Yeah.
But I think we hit on everything we needed to hit on. So, yeah, man. Shout out Derrick Rose.
And
Shout out Embiid. Get
even
healthy,
though
Mitch.
even though I'm preying on the Sixers downfall, shout out to MSG South. Shout out to the gang.
Oh,
Shout out
wow.
to our little brother.
Here it is. Here we go. Oh my gosh. Yeah. All right, man. Well, another good episode in the books. And yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. We'll be seeing you.